Qualcomm,
Yeah.
beat raise, diversification story here with automotive. Automotive is a juggernaut. Nothing really on PCs. Said that it exceeded internal expectations, which were appropriate, low, and some SKUs were sold out, but it's a very small percentage. But I do believe the roadmap looks good, and I think even looking at OEMs after the Intel news, maybe they're doing a side eye at Qualcomm. Any impact from any potential AI lift is going to be through this new Orion core that'll be announced later this year. Won't financially impact this year, but if AI and smartphones is going to hit in any year, it's going to be 2025. And if we see what Apple is doing with Apple AI, it is a good portending thing. I think China will actually be leading with the AI smartphone, which I think, again, there's a lot of puts and takes for Qualcomm in China. You've got Huawei rising, you have Apple potentially declining, but you've got premium smartphones in China going up that does benefit Qualcomm because you get the APU, you get the modem, and you get a lot more RF content. Go.
So Qualcomm was a good print. The stock reaction was very interesting, though. It was up like 8% in the aftermarket, and then it was like down, and then it's been weak since. And there were a couple of reasons. So the quarter was good. It was a nice, solid beat and raise. The guide on the surface was a beat, and people were worried because, again, they also lost their Huawei export license. So there were two reasons of the stock sell-off. The first was that guide actually had an extra week in the quarter, and so you get extra revenue and everything. And I think it was misunderstood how much revenue it was, because if you just do it at first glance, it's 8% of a quarter's revenue. They guided $9.9 billion. If you just take a uniform revenue distribution, the real guide without the week would have been 9.2, which was very low. They said some stuff on the call. You could actually back that out. It wasn't that much. It was like $300 million, about $100 million in licensing, $200 million in chips. 9.6 was, in my opinion, was the sort of normalized guide, which would have been fine. The other issue, though, is they've made a practice of the last couple of quarters to kind of give like N+1 guidance, to guide not just the next quarter, but give some soft guidance to the quarter beyond. And they kind of guided the December quarter softly, but a little below where the street was. And so that's kind of what they tend to do this. Again, maybe they should stop. But if you sort of look at their prior history, when they eventually get to that quarter, not only do they tend to beat their guide, they also tend to beat where consensus had been before they gave the guide. So I think they're being conservative. I think it was fine, but I mean, that was the issue. There's the other issues that Qualcomm is having is everybody's worried about the Apple modem. It's potentially going away. They've actually told everybody for modeling purposes, assume it goes away. People have assumed that's end of 26, but there's been some news flow that they might lose some small volume SKUs next year potentially, as Apple kind of trials their modem. And I don't think it's not a lot of earnings. I don't think that the worry there is there. The worry would be that, does it increase the chance that the actual thing actually does go away, like for real? Because people are thinking that maybe it won't. So it's been disappointing. Now at these price levels, I think you're already pricing Apple out. I could take all of Apple out like next year fully, and it's like trading in the teens today. So yeah. Like, I think you're kind of pricing it in, but that's the worry that people have. It's like, well, they're guiding down December. I got these Apple headwinds, maybe there's no rush. That's kind of where I think sentiment in the near to medium term will be it just ignoring all the other stuff that's going on, like with the macro and everything right now. I think that's just where sentiment is. But in general, it was a decent print. It was very good. They're on the product roadmap and everything. They're killing it. And you mentioned auto, by the way. Like the adjacency stories looking really good. Like the auto killed it. Auto was really good. I think their long-term targets there are looking increasingly conservative. At least their industrial IoT business has bottomed. And then, we'll see what PCs do. I mean, worst case, it's not a negative for them. Right? Yeah. So we'll see if ARM PCs are a thing. I don't know yet, but if they are, they'll benefit.
Yeah. So you guys hit on a lot of the points. I think you and I, Pat, have been beating the diversification drum, and this is where it's starting to really shine. I mean, look, the handset business it was fine, but I mean, all their growth came in strength in automotive and strength in IoT, which are now, they've had these two additional almost I mean, automotive is almost $1 billion a quarter now of revenue.
Yeah,
With
they
the huge
811 million they did.
Yeah, 800 something. But I mean, it's 75% roughly up from a year ago. So it is changing the whole trajectory and the whole shape of the company. So now it's got the potential of these ARM PCs, which, you know, when we talked, we all probably talked to Christian. I know you and I did, Pat. I talked to him, and, you know, I thought, you know, I kind of said, like, I'd like to hear more about how it's going. Kind of the way they explained how it's going was a little vague. Like, you know, it's better than we had modeled. Okay, well, good. I'm glad to hear that. But what does that really mean? Are people buying these? Are they flying off the shelf? I mean, our testing in our lab shows that there's some really great stuff. Pat, you and I both use them every day.
Yeah.
I've been encouraged by my experience with them. But is this a super cycle? I mean, we keep hearing that term, like there's going to be a super cycle. Well,
I hate that term.
I know. Some people love it. But the point is, like, what does that mean, and when does it ramp? How excited are people? What value are they getting? You and I have both complained about the Microsoft recall thing not necessarily being there, and that was the exciting feature. So that's a big one for me. I mean, then we were hearing about, by the way, a super cycle on the handsets, right? There's going to be a super cycle driven by Apple Intelligence, and it's going to make everybody run to the store. And I know you're cringing, but just, you know, I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying that's the sort of the street. You know, the bulls of the street are saying.
Where I get bullish, by the way, on the AI smartphone side is actually not tons of units and upgrades, like it's content.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
actually where I'm very, and if I think that's enough, frankly. And if we get an upgrade cycle, great. Like, that'd be wonderful.
So it's more people willing to pay more for, you know, the things they're using on the device. You know, of course. And look, I'm gonna be really clear. AI is not XR, and not to say actually. Qualcomm, part of their strong IoT number was XR, which is rare. Anybody's making money on the VR XR side, but they actually do well because the Meta new headsets are performing well. But where I'm getting at is, like, AI is a real thing. The biggest thing across the entire industry, though, that I think people are fighting with is what AI are people willing to pay for, and what AI are people just expecting as part of what would be kind of an iterative upgrade. And that could be in software, that could be in hardware, that could be in enterprise, that could be in consumer. It's like, do people pay more for SaaS? I'm supposed to get the next feature. That's part of why I subscribe to your stuff. How much more am I going to pay for it? Same thing with a phone. Like, every time I go buy a phone, it's supposed to have more stuff. That's why I upgrade. I mean, by the way, I'm still using a 13 Pro Max because I've seen nothing in the last 2 generations that excites me enough to pay for another phone. And I'm a tech guy. So, you know, that's what we're up against. But Qualcomm's numbers, I mean, look, compared to where we started this conversation,
Oh yeah.
steady state, good stuff, margin, operations, management, execution. You know, not a lot to complain about over there. Diversification looking good.